how to connect. Okay, we got one guy. We got Brian here. Okay, people are showing up. And by the way, what a great lead-in that was to this panel talking about the Wikimedia Foundation and Enterprise MediaWiki, to have somebody from the Enterprise MediaWiki, from the Wikimedia Foundation, giving a great talk that I think is going to be useful for a lot of people who do Enterprise MediaWiki. So I wish I could take credit for that scheduling decision, but I think that was Brian who did that. Okay, everyone is here. Fantastic. Okay. I guess we can start.
Tess, can you actually hear me?
I can hear you, Brian.
Okay. How about me?
I can hear you, Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Cindy, can hear you.
Also test.
Yes, I can.
Markus test. One.
Yes, I heard that. Test. Okay, great. So we're having a panel about the Wikimedia Foundation and Enterprise MediaWiki. I guess we should start by just introducing ourselves. Let's go in alphabetical order by last name. Cindy, you would have been first either way. Oh, no, actually, you wouldn't have been first either way. But you are first, Cindy. So go ahead, please state who you are.
I am Cindy Cicalese. I am a principal engineer at the Wikimedia Foundation. I've been at the foundation for almost 4 years now, which is amazing. I, prior to that, worked for MITRE, which is a federally funded research and development center. For about 10 years prior to that, developing MediaWiki extensions, managing a MediaWiki infrastructure, and developing wikis for our government customers. And about 4 years ago, joined the Wikimedia Foundation actually as a product manager for MediaWiki, sort of as a little bit of a diversion in my career. I thought it would be interesting to be a product manager, and learned a lot in that process over 3 years, but from almost day one, missed writing code. So was fortunate enough to be able to transition back into an engineering role last summer, and since have been working on MediaWiki core and enjoying it greatly.
Great. Markus?
My name is Markus Glaser. I am a co-founder of Hallo Welt, which is the company behind Blue Spice, Wiki distribution. And I'm also involved in media, I think. One of the notable things is probably the MediaWiki stakeholders group, which I'm also part of, an active part of. So I've been working on MediaWiki in the enterprise context for our customers, of course, for 12 years now. And I hope I can to this discussion.
Very good. And Mark?
I'm Mark Hershberger. What else? I got to share this. It's the amazing thing about me. I was the only bugmeister for Wikimedia because they changed the title after I left. So, either I was really good or really bad. Anyway, I've been working since then as a consultant with various companies to get their wikis set up. I was very, very excited to hear Robert talk about importing from Confluence, because that is something I have people talking to me about. So yeah, other than that, I with Markus, I founded the MediaWiki stakeholders. I think that's it.
Cool. And that guy who looks like he's about to unleash a monster guitar riff is Brian Wolff. Brian, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brian. Let's see. A long time ago, I used to be on the multimedia team at Wikimedia, and then later on the security team. Since about a year ago, I don't work for the Wikimedia Foundation anymore, but I still kind of like to hang around the community and show up on the support desk and stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks all for being on the panel. I think all of you have experience both with the Wikimedia Foundation and Enterprise MediaWiki, or in both worlds, present or current. Well, we don't have a talk that's specific to the MediaWiki stakeholders group, so I thought this was a good opportunity to, in lieu of that, to have Mark. I think you're the best person to talk about it, to talk about the MediaWiki stakeholders group and what it is, because it very much ties into what we're talking about. If you don't mind. Mark, are you thinking about my question? Do you? Oh, he's frozen. Okay, it took me a while to realize that he was frozen and not just thinking for a long time. And okay, yeah, Brian is saying. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, Marcus, you could answer also because you're a co-founder. Well, yeah, okay, Marcus, go ahead.
Okay, so the MediaWiki stakeholders group was out of a project that Mark and I did when we were like external release managers for MediaWiki, and we found that the outside world, so the people that are using MediaWiki outside of the foundation, does not really have maybe some sort of a lobby or a special interest organization in the Wikimedia universe. Around that time, there was a lot of talking about getting such a group together, like people who use MediaWiki in the outside. I call it the outside world. So so we decided to go for the affiliate way here and become a formal Wikimedia affiliate group. The purpose of this group is essentially to gather people who are running MediaWikis and who are developing for MediaWiki in the context of their organization, of their project, of their enterprise, of course, join forces a little bit, exchange experience. We all have our troubles in setting up proper MediaWiki. So we have common needs for extensions. We want to standardize things. So, for example, one of our lighthouse projects is the LDOP stack, where we said, okay, each of us can implement their own LDOP connection, but it's way better to just join forces here, come up with some sort of standard. So that's the main purpose of the organization. And also, of course, within the Wikimedia development, core development, we are the ones who we see ourselves as the ones who raise the flag and raise hands when there's some development in MediaWiki which also touches the MediaWiki maintainers' interests. So we tend to take part in discussions here and want to raise the awareness of the huge amount of people that are using MediaWiki outside of the foundation.
Yeah, I don't know, Mark, I don't know if you're there, and if so, if you want to add anything to that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There's a big pause, but anyway, here we go. I think Marcus did a great job of explaining all of that, and I really don't have much to add, except that everyone should join the MediaWiki stakeholders and become a dues-paying member right now. And other than that, that's all I have to add.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, how as MediaWiki stakeholders, group members, and just as people, I guess, how well do you think the Wikimedia Foundation is doing now in terms of supporting enterprise MediaWiki, either consciously or just as a side aspect, as a symptom, I guess, of what they do normally?
I think so far it is, what I would say is it can be difficult to get people within the foundation to realize that there are other users out there. But once you get someone's attention, things happen really rather quickly, because, you know, a lot of times they are very aware. There are several people within the foundation who are very aware of, you know, third-party users. So so most of the stuff that's happening is very beneficial for us. There are times when, you know, things happen that are not so beneficial, but it's usually easy to engage with people within the foundation. And it doesn't hurt that we have Cindy there too. So she's our mole.
Yeah, I would like to add that I have the impression that awareness of outside MediaWiki use is higher now than it was, say, 5 years ago. So there was a lot of decisions back then which I know people, extension developers, felt like there were decisions made without consulting the community, and that had severe impact on extensions functionality. I mean, there are still architectural decisions that go that way, and I think nobody really doubts that the foundation is like an autonomous body that makes decisions on MediaWiki. But I feel like there's more awareness of how does it impact the outside world now. So I can see that, and yeah, so that's I guess that is a development in a good direction.
I guess I can speak to that a little bit as well as the mole. Yeah, I would say, well, the first thing is obviously Wikipedia and its sister projects are, you know, customer number one for the MediaWiki software. That goes without saying. And a lot that's been done in MediaWiki has been done, MediaWiki and the surrounding software and services has been done to support highly scalable operation for support of Wikipedia and the other projects. That being said, there are a number, I am not the only person within the foundation that recognizes that MediaWiki is also used by others. And, you know, my personal belief is that MediaWiki as software, you know, helps support the mission of knowledge, you know, being able to be accessed and stored and by many projects, whether it be Wikimedia focused, Wikimedia being the community, not the foundation, whether it be Wikimedia knowledge or not, the MediaWiki software, by, you know, ingrained in the DNA of the software, is the belief of knowledge sharing and provenance and collaboration. And so there is a definitely recognition, I'd say, you know, definitely within, you know, the core set of developers as well, of the fact that other people are using the software. And I think tomorrow, Daniel Kinsler, who's in my group, will be talking about what we're doing to re-architect MediaWiki right now and to modernize the software. And he spoke last year at EMWCon about the stable interface policy, which speaks very much to what Markus was talking about making sure that the interfaces are more stable for those who are developing extensions. And, you know, as we work, and I am working on the expedition team also that Daniel will be talking about tomorrow, as we work to improve the MediaWiki core software, we're very cognizant of the fact that extensions are making use of that software, and that we need to be very disciplined in the way that we update the code base. There's a wonderful tool, Code Search, that allows the core software and then extensions that are built on top of MediaWiki that are in certain repos, either the Wikimedia Garrett repo, or there are a number of, and this is another plug for MediaWiki Stakeholders Group, Mark manages a repo that's got links to other repos holding extension software, and that repo is also indexed by Code Search. So Code Search allows us to search for usage of various different aspects of the MediaWiki software, and make sure that either we suggest for the extension developers how they can update to adapt any changes that we're making in core, or even we can submit patches to extensions, and we make sure that we consult that as we're. So there's definitely an effort to be very cognizant of what's going on, how extension developers and how others outside the foundation are using MediaWiki as well. It's not the prime focus of the software developers of core, as is correct, as is appropriate, because we are working primarily to support Wikipedia, but it's not without knowledge of the fact that others are using the software. And I'm personally delighted that others are using the software. I used to be one of those people, and I still try to use MediaWiki also for other projects. So I think it's valuable software, and I think the more people that use it for different uses, the better it will become.
Well, just briefly, Cindy, do you feel like you are biased, I guess, in favor of enterprise MediaWiki because you came from that world? Like you tend to take that side more than you should, or something? I don't know.
Oh, not more than I should.
All right. Very good.
The appropriate
that was a trick
amount.
Question. Yeah.
Yes. No, I definitely think that I favor third-party use of MediaWiki the appropriate amount. I think it's good to balance. Definitely, I recognize that the fact that MediaWiki is and should always support and should always be targeted towards Wikimedia projects, but that's definitely not to the exclusion of its use for third-party applications as well. I think the two can coexist very well.
Yeah.
And
Brian, do you have any thoughts on anything that's been discussed?
I mean, so I remember when I first got involved with Wikimedia, in some sense, like, it was very about Wikipedia. Even like Wikimedia Commons and other Wikimedia projects were not getting very much love. And like still to this day, like the sister projects often feel left out. But like, it used to be like Wikipedia is the like laser focus, and we've seen Wikimedia take a somewhat broader view since then in other Wikimedia projects and more generally, which is, in my opinion, a positive thing. I like seeing MediaWiki used outside of Wikimedia, taking over the world and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody asked an interesting question. What are a few examples of specific areas where MediaWiki's interests have not aligned with enterprise?
I
that's
think I
pretty
can say a
easy.
few words here. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Sorry, that's pretty easy actually, because Wikimedia is all about, sharing and making sure everyone has access to knowledge. Whereas when you're in a company, a lot of times they want to have some control over who can see it. So that is a culture adaptation that people have to make when they want to use MediaWiki. They have to understand that it is not Confluence, it is not SharePoint. There is not the fine grain control. I think that's probably the big disconnect, I guess.
Yeah, I want to add that. I mean, while in the ACL question, like the access question, it's more or less, it's the opposite world. MediaWiki is open and ACL wants to shut down. I think there are also areas where that are just simply neglected in MediaWiki, which are of use in enterprises. So to name a few examples, as I just said, integration with other systems like LDAP connection, or administrative things. So MediaWiki totally relies on self-service administration, whereas in an organization you want to have centralized, setting of users, user groups, things like that. And also, one more example I can come up with is things like processes. So organizations work very strongly in defined processes, and they want some support for this, like approve something, or if Mark edits the page first, and then Cindy should edit the page, and then Brian should say that's okay, things like that. So these are things where we see that you have to add extensions to MediaWiki. And I guess the very simple answer is take MediaWiki core as you get it, and then take the difference to the extensions. That's 3,500 extensions, and all of them provide some functionality that's missing in core, which is good. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing these extensions exist, and it's a good thing you can make MediaWiki do a lot of stuff. So I sometimes even see it as a application platform or a framework, instead of just a single use software.
Yeah. So Marcus, are you saying, I guess there's in some hypothetical alternate universe where MediaWiki was created just as a wiki software? Of course, there's plenty of other wiki software. A lot more the functionality that's in extensions would have gone into core by now.
Not necessarily, but I mean, it all depends on the core target audience. So if you take a look at other wiki engines, they have more of this functionality I just talked about baked into their core product. But on the other hand, maybe a magnitude less of extensions in their extension store, right? That is, yeah.
So what you were saying, Yaron, about the what's baked in, what is baked into MediaWiki, and I've talked about this before, is really the culture of Wikipedia that is baked into MediaWiki, that it is sharing information, so that if you want to restrict information, you have to, there's limits on how you can restrict it. Most of the restrictions I do are only namespace wide instead of like per page, and that actually introduces something valuable for your client, because they're thinking, they're in this mindset, oh, I have to lock everything down, and they don't think about, oh, what if I share and allow people to, have input more freely?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just randomly, I'm just the moderator, but I think the lack of fine-grained read control is one of those things that's a weakness that's really a strength potentially, in that it forces people to do what they probably should have done anyway, which is just open the wiki up as much as possible. But that's the different people will have different opinions on that. But I think that's what you're saying, though.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, like, if you want something super locked down and process oriented, like, there's other software in that space that like does it better than we do, and is always going to do it better than we do. Right? Like, software is not just like a technical system, like it's a social technical system. Mm-hmm. And the MediaWiki software encourages a certain social organization that I think is often beneficial. And that's where the success of it comes from. Not necessarily like the software itself, but encouraging people to organize in the way they need to organize, instead of a very convoluted organization that doesn't serve the purposes they want.
Yeah, there's a real culture shift when people start using a wiki. And, you know, we found this, you know, as I said, we developed, when I was back at MITRE, wikis for government customers. And pretty much the first question we would always get asked would be, you know, things about how do I not share? And it's a culture shift and a benefit. And when people get to the point that they realize that they can share in this environment and you know, have it be a safe space, and so there needs to be an advocate to help promote the wiki and encourage people to share openly. You wind up finding that the benefits of sharing across your organization, and maybe not completely open, still behind a firewall, only within your organization perhaps, but to have the people who are members of the wiki, who are contributors, be able to share openly, you get a magnitude of benefit that you would not have if it was little pockets of isolation, of hidden information. The benefit is that ability to see across and to find the common threads and to find the nuggets of information that you can then build on and grow. And that's when your corpus of information starts to magnify. And so that can be a barrier that takes some education and takes some advocacy when you're first introducing a wiki into an organization to get past that initial tendency and urge to protect oneself and one's information, and, you know, not have somebody see something that's half-baked or a half-formed idea. You need to embrace that. And it takes a little bit of education to get people to the level where they're willing to do that. And they'll reap a lot of benefits once they can get there, but they need to overcome that initial hesitancy.
Go ahead.
I think the enterprise world and the openness of MediaWiki is like they have to move, or when you introduce a wiki, you kind of move them together. And as like extension developers, if you want to embrace that world, if we want to have wikis out there, and actually I also think that's kind of a subversive way of enabling more sharing and more collaboration in a company. I think it's to implement those features in a clever way. So one of my favorite examples is flag graphs. A lot of people, when we work with people, they ask, how can I ensure that quality is good and I don't essentially trust my workers? And that basically is the philosophy of any content management system. So it is, you can write and can contribute, but there is some higher enlightened person that has to confirm that what you're doing is right. Now, the wiki is completely opposite, which I quite like. It says, we trust you to be the expert. You can write something, it's live. The moment you press save, you hit save, and we totally trust you and we believe what you're doing is right. Now, flag graphs does something that is a compromise, because essentially when you save, your contribution is publicly available, but it's labeled a draft, right? So so it's still live from the first moment, and anyone who has added access in MediaWiki can actually contribute and can share their knowledge. But then we get the experts that say, okay, now I confirm your knowledge, right? So it's a way of compromising between those two words, like still getting out the trust of anyone, but somehow maybe pacifying the people that are afraid of misinformation or things like that. I think if we can manage to design our features in the same like clever way, in the same spirit, and not forget the spirit of MediaWiki or the message, as Mark says, the message that's baked into MediaWiki, then we can create great enterprise products as well, while not forgetting that idea of sharing.
Yeah, we're starting to get now into the territory of the other panel, which is about MediaWiki Consulting. But just a little more on this topic. Somebody wrote, well, actually two people wrote, I guess I'll read both their comments. One wrote, with Wikipedia, anyone can edit, where with Enterprise, to ensure accuracy, this can be limited to certain editors in Enterprise, which is true. Somebody else wrote, using MediaWiki in a company requires a whole new philosophy of information sharing within the company, and usually that is a change for the better. We always speak about making MediaWiki more corporate friendly, but maybe we need corporations to be more MediaWiki friendly. Yeah. And well, we have a number of consultants here in this panel, and I think everyone who's done MediaWiki consulting for some period of time has that experience of dealing with, maybe it's mostly upper level management. I don't know, people who say, you know, the first thing they ask for is the ability to protect pages and make sure that only certain people can edit certain things, because, you know, who wants a knowledge system where anyone can go change anything at any time? I mean,
I have a comment about that. One of the fundamental differences between editing on Wikipedia, where folks can do it anonymously, and most corporate wikis is the fact that folks need to be logged in, and their their actual real life persona is typically known within an enterprise wiki. And so there are reputational consequences that occur more within a corporate wiki than typically you'd see within Wikipedia. There's less of an incentive, or there's more of a disincentive for folks to, for example, engage in vandalism if their job is on the line. And so they would be unlikely to logged in make vandalous, that's not a word, make bad edits to a wiki page if they feel so. There's sort of a double-edged sword to that with reputation. People might be afraid to contribute because they know it'll be attributed to them, but they would also be less likely to engage in bad behavior. And so that's sort of that adds sort of another complexion to the difference between something that would be a corporate wiki and editing Wikipedia, where one could do it. And there are definitely also reputational, you know, for the folks who are logged in to Wikipedia, there's a reputation that grows, but there's also the ability to contribute anonymously or pseudonymously.
Yeah. I would also like to add, I mean, given that I guess the people on the panel here are bringing MediaWiki to organizations, because you can actually doubt that. Okay, we don't want that. But I think that's a value in itself. And as I said, it brings some cultural shift to the organizations. And actually, a lot of people that ask us to work with MediaWiki in their organization, they come with these ideas of being very restrictive, and then we talk to them and we show them how you can do it. And once there was some really like a complex workflow which they wanted us to build into the wiki, and then we talked to them, and they ended up with using just flag drives. Or another good example is to get acceptance of one manager, we had to build in an emergency button, which would, when pressed, immediately hide the content, because they were afraid that somebody would just vandalize the page. And we built that in, and obviously after a few years we just put it out again. So what I want to say is that you know, some kind of, I wouldn't say clash, but yeah, let's call it a clash of cultures. Like, we come from the open sharing community, and you go into an organization. And of course, if you want to get some acceptance, you have to not only address the people that are already on the open side, right? So you need to get the people on board that do have their doubts and that are afraid of going into the open. And by giving them some compromise tools, that is often the case, that we can actually convince those people and say, okay, yeah, I go with you, and let's go that open way, if I have my emergency button or whatnot. And as I said, the experience shows then it tends towards more openness in the course of the runtime of a wiki.
So
yeah. Well, okay.
If I can add something about, because this is about Wikimedia, and how this all works with Wikimedia. So to bring that back, a tool like MediaWiki would not exist if it were not for, Wikimedia's vision of sharing knowledge. If someone was to build a wiki, they would have all these things from the start to make it easier to manage the wiki, instead of easy to contribute. That was the goal from the start. So I think when it comes to the public, us working with Wikimedia, I think it is something to be really, and I'm trying not to be too complimentary here, but it is something to be grateful to the foundation that they they have the resources and they put this together and they made it available for everyone. So even if it's not the perfect thing, what they've done helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Mark, for bringing this back on track, and yeah, and I think that bears repeating, and it's great to hear from someone who's affiliated with the MediaWiki stakeholders group that it's not all just requests and shortcomings or something. We all have we all yeah, it's good not to take for granted any of what they have created, which is amazing. But anyway, on to actual problems. So speaking of flagged revs, of course, we can talk about the functionality. We can also talk about the fact that it's kind of unusable software, in my opinion anyway. I mean, I created an extension called approved revs in large part because I just couldn't understand how to install flagged revs. This may be my personal opinion, but there's certainly a number of extensions created by the Wikimedia Foundation that have failed in one way or another. There's article feedback and liquid threads. You could potentially add flow / structured discussions to that list, and that's not to blame any one developer at the Wikimedia Foundation, because they're very talented people, and Brian, of course, can attest to that. And is one of those, or was one of those people. I mean, he's still talented, but it seems to be, potentially a sort of design by committee problem. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that, or whether they could learn something from the enterprise MediaWiki world, or
Well,
I have thoughts.
Yes.
Oh, Marcus, you go first.
Cindy. Okay, thanks. So with the exception of flag drafts, I think the death of these projects was they never got to a official stable stage. So I know that with Flow, several times we were thinking about using that, but the interface kept changing. So once you started extending that or adapting that somehow, you had to rewrite it over and over again because it never reached some kind of a stable stage. I don't know if that is something that one can learn from the enterprise world, but they value stability a lot. So the good old put in release milestones, and if we can work on that and have stable interfaces, then we can deal with a lot of stuff. Having said that, that's not meant to blame the foundation, because I mean that was a project that tried it and they said, okay, it's not stable. So at least we knew it's not stable, right? So. But that is, in my opinion, the examples you named, that was for us the most, the hardest challenge to really these extensions. Cindy, sorry. No, you
sure. Go. So Marcus, I think, said before 3,500 extensions. I haven't actually counted. I don't know how many, but there are a lot of extensions out there, and when I first joined at the foundation, I was sort of curious. I'm surprised I didn't do this before, but I compared the list of extensions that were installed on English Wikipedia from the list that I typically installed on my own wikis, or the wikis that we developed for our customers at MITRE. And each had over 100 extensions. but there was only an overlap of, I think, 10 extensions that were on both our wikis as well as English Wikipedia, because they're definitely different use cases and different needs. There have been extensions that have been developed for Wikimedia wikis that were to handle specific use cases. And I would say that the various different discussion tools, from liquid threads to flow to now there's discussion tools, I think it's called, is the new one, that were meant to solve a particular problem. The Wikimedia editor community has specific needs and opinions, and in order to satisfy that community, it was necessary to make certain adaptations, and they tried different things, and some of the community accepted, some didn't. That's really different from the types of things that are done often for an enterprise, where you've got a smaller, more well-defined set of users, and you can design specific features. And a lot of the extensions that I've worked on that we developed for our customers was to handle a specific problem with a well-known set of users, for tackling a problem. And so I wouldn't look at the fact that and there are also specific Wikimedia extensions, like, for example, Central Auth, that are meant to be installed on the Wikimedia infrastructure. They were solving a specific problem for the Wikimedia wikis, and were never intended to be installed, to be easy to install in a third-party environment. And that was very appropriate for what they were trying to solve. So so I would say that there are different types of extensions needing to solve different problems. And the fact that particular extensions that were developed for the Wikimedia community may have not persisted. You could also look and see many enterprise extensions that were created over time that are now archived, that were useful for something, but maybe their use was superseded, or it just turned out to be not that useful. So I think that could be said both for non-Wikimedia as well as Wikimedia extensions.
I have some controversial opinions about flag revisions and flow. I think both suffered from having unclear vision in those stages. So, like, flag revisions is one of the earliest extensions that Wikimedia started working on, that was like kind of very different from its day-to-day stuff, and like it tried to meet everyone's needs, but like the German Wikipedians had very different ideas from other Wikipedia projects of what you would want in a quality checking extension, and they tried to do all of them. And I think lesson learned, you can't keep everyone happy and come up with something that like makes sense in the end. Like, and similar with Flow, like from what I understand, the original pitch for Flow like years ago was less a discussion extension and more of like trying to copy the Facebook wall feature, where you'd have like not so much discussions, but like everyone in your social interaction graphs, like actions would show up there. Like if someone marks your article for deletion, it would show up in Flow, and if someone starts discussing something on someone else, it would show up in Flow. So like less a top page replacement and more like a different model. And then that idea kind of got changed into top page replacement. There was like different teams that took over development, different stages. And I mean, I think both of those extensions are examples of stuff where like kind of unclear vision and different people wanting different things at different times resulted in these extensions that kind of the end product was a bunch of compromises because it wasn't specific, like solving one problem with particular focus. I mean, Wikimedia is an organization like everyone else. Sometimes it's going to hit the mark, sometimes it's not. Like, I think sometimes people forget that like most software projects fail, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like you can't, if you're always succeeding, you're not taking risks. Anyways, sorry, I'm not sure if that kind of got away from me, but
No, that's good. Yeah, your audio is a little choppy, but your statement is right on target, as they say. Yeah, that's true. No, yeah, and I certainly didn't want to, just be criticizing the Wikimedia Foundation. Yeah, that's okay. Does anyone else want to say something about it? I mean, have there been lessons learned from those? Will the next project be more likely to succeed because people have learned not to try to make everything for everyone, all things for all people?
I really don't know how to fix this problem of starting a project and then it doesn't turn out to be everything you wanted it to be, and it doesn't satisfy everyone. But I think that there is something to the idea that the foundation could start scoping out more of what they want up front and iterating over that, getting feedback from the community and saying, how is this looking? And maybe that would help. But again, I'm not a product manager. I don't know these things. It's just a off the wall idea.
I would say that's very much what's going on with the new discussion tools extension or functionality, is that they are getting a lot of feedback from the Wikimedia community in going forward with that. And they're also developing the functionality incrementally. I think they first added a reply button was the first thing to make it easier. But, there was very much a very focused attempt for that to reach out to the users and design functionality that would be appropriate for that. So there's definitely an acknowledgement of the fact that they need to get that input up front. So that I think is really, and there is a very well-defined product management practice now that's established and that's doing these experiments and consultations with the community before moving forward with new functionality. And I think you'll find that that's going forward.
Yeah. Well, we only have about 5 minutes left. If anyone has any specific questions, feel free to share them. Let me get this in while I can. MediaWiki has a new logo as of about, I don't know, a month or two ago. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Just the how it looks, whether it means something, as things gotten more corporate because of the more corporate looking logo.
I think someone said it reminded them too much of BP, but other than that,
right.
And I'm an old fogey. I don't change things on me. So
I found it's growing on me, actually. Like, initially, I hated it. And if I'm being 100% honest, I still probably like the sunflower logo better. But it's grown on me a lot now that I've seen it, like, in practice and gotten used to it.
Yeah, okay.
I also hate change, just like Mark.
Yeah, I think that's... yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there a rule that every logo has to look flat now, and as simple and
well, that is
as simple as possible, or whatever.
That's the nature of logos. If you look at logos over, Coca-Cola over 100 years, it's gotten flatter and simpler. And it's the same thing with any other logo. That's just the nature of logos. They try to reduce the complexity.
Easier and less expensive to reproduce on T-shirts and the like.
There's a series on YouTube called "Please Don't Turn Me Into an Oversimplified Logo."
Are there any other questions? All right. Oh crap! I had a question, but now I've forgotten it.
I would just like to echo what Brian has said here in chat about, since we're talking about the Wikimedia Foundation and all that, that everyone within the foundation, well, okay, let's say 5 nines of everyone in the foundation has been awesome. The trick is just anticipating what end users will be.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you. We'll never find out what the trick is. Oh, okay. Wait, it's well. If you were about to read from the comments, that somebody said the trick is anticipating what end users will be happy about, and most of the times, even the end users can't predict what that will be. Yeah, which is true. What is it? That's various. That's one of those marketing things, like don't listen too much to your customers or something.
Tell me what the end users actually want. All theirs.
Yeah. Well, so on that note, if people do want, I was just talking to somebody a few days ago who asked, he said, the parsing in MediaWiki is going to change with Parsoid, and now the my variables extension won't reliably work anymore because things can get called out of order. So. And there's a big note on the My Variables extension page about that. So he asked, where can we go if we want to complain about that? My answer was basically it's too late to complain about that specific thing. But if people do have specific things they want to change or complain about or something in MediaWiki or anything else, what have people found to be a good way to do that? Or there's no way.
First of all, I would point them to Fabricator, and maybe if it's important, get some other people on the same ticket to stir some noise. Maybe that's one way to do it. But I don't know, Cindy, if there is any other specific point of entry. I mean, also, of course, the MediaWiki stakeholders, if it's some severe thing, then you could also raise it at the stakeholders, and we see if we have like more people that are affected, or if there's some serious impact, and then of course use our channels as well. But that's not an official way. It's just in what I said in the beginning, it's just joining forces, right? So that's what we try. So if there are a lot of people affected, then we can join forces and raise awareness for that issues.
Yeah. But by the way, the extension was variables, not my variables. We are basically out of time, but I guess we have time for one last question. Are people still using LTS, long-term support releases, or do people just use stable releases? Which I guess would, in our case, would mean were people going to switch to MediaWiki 136 or stick to 135? Yeah, does that? Yeah.
I guess, or do people use bleeding edge releases?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, more generally, what do you recommend people should do? Does anyone have thoughts on that?
So in enterprise, what I live in versions, keeping up of master is virtually impossible for us.
So it takes us to adapt to new version takes us for our software about 2 months. If you would have to do that every half year, that would just be way too much. And I can see that I already said in the enterprise world, stability is something they really like. So even stability in features and in optics, and they want to stick with one thing for quite a while. So we use LTS policy here, and we have a fairly good feedback on that.
Yeah, okay. I would say, back in my previous life, we generally stuck with what we would use whatever the most recent release was. We wouldn't use master, but we would use whatever the most recent released software was, primarily because we were often developing bleeding edge extensions ourselves, and we wanted to be able to have access to the most recent functionality. That being said, I do know a lot of folks who stick with the LTSs, and I know there's been discussion on the Wikimedia side as far as whether, do people, having the same question, do people still use LTS releases? And that's primarily from the perspective of the foundation having to maintain backports and security releases for these older releases of MediaWiki going forward. But there's enough benefit, I think, from certainly what Markus said, having more stability and not needing to upgrade every 6 months and upgrade all of the extensions every 6 months to adapt to new versions. That there is enough demand from the third-party community to continue supporting LTSs. I think it really depends upon what your use case is and what you're trying to do and support. They're both users of both approaches.
Yeah, certainly there's a strong argument to be made for upgrading to MediaWiki 135 for people who aren't on it, just in terms of parsoid and how much easier Visual Editor is to install and use now. Well, great. We're a little over time, but that was a very good discussion, I think. So thanks to all of you. I guess we'll leave it at that. We have a break now, and we'll see you all in about 25 minutes. So thank you very much. Bye, everyone.